Hey everyone, and welcome back to the SQL Squared podcast, a podcast where we chat about all things data development and the cool tech shaping our world. I'm your host, David Morgan-Gum, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome our guest, Simon Frazer. Simon is a senior database administrator at Medivet and also owns his own SQL Server consultancy, Simon Frazer Limited, focusing on performance, optimization, and security. He's got a proper interesting background, starting in software development before moving into the data space. Hey, Simon, I hope you're doing well.
Hey, David. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
No worries, no worries. It's good to have you on. And I'm sure we'll have a really exciting chat moving forward and people can take away a lot of learns from your experience in the industry. So today, we're going to dive into Simon's journey from software to data, talk about his time at a certain well-known video game retailer, and explore his work with the Brent Ozar Consultant Toolkit in his consultancy work. We'll also touch on recent conference experiences and discuss his long-standing passion for coding, because I know you've been coding from an early age, Simon. Moving straight in then, looking at the road from software to data. I know we had a bit of a chat a few weeks ago, and you said that you originally started your career in software development and kind of then transitioned to that data space. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I never saw it happening originally because I sort of loved coding. But obviously, when you're sort of writing applications, there's always going to be some sort of database somewhere that you store things in. So SQL Server has always been there since the beginning. And I sort of knew of it. I worked with it. But over the years, although I still love coding, I did get very interested in the SQL Server side of things. So I think I spent 14 years as a developer officially. It's kind of went up the skill set, if you like. Got better and better. Never really good, but there are some amazing developers out there. But I did start to transition into more of a database developer. And I still don't know why. I loved that you could design the tables, and I liked that you could get it very, very wrong, or you could do it very, very well. And that had a direct impact on how your application performed. And then getting into the scripts, mainly stored procedures, I absolutely love the performance tuning side of it. I found when you're coding applications, a lot of the time you can kind of get away with code that's not perfectly performing, unless your users are complaining. But with the database side of it, if your application is talking to the database and it takes 10 seconds to come back, they're going to be quite cross about that. So I really love the performance tuning side of SQL Server. So eventually I took the plunge and decided to become a full-blown production DBA and haven't really looked back, to be honest. And part of me is glad of that, because the pace at which development, sort of technologies come out and the pace at which people have to learn is so fast these days.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm just glad SQL Server is my focus on that. It doesn't change that much. It's been around for a long time. There's new things coming out, but I can't keep up with all the dev things happening. So I'm very impressed with the people that are good at that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with a few of them, and it's really impressive what you can learn from them. I started out within the SQL Server space, but I've moved much more towards that kind of data engineering stack in recent years. So away from kind of that SQL Server maintenance processes and stored procedures, like you mentioned, and more towards kind of Python and moving information between systems and stuff like that. I love both, and they've both got their quirks. And yeah, the optimization side of things, what you mentioned with stored procedures, it's a really interesting point. I've definitely got quite a few stories we could chat about there of really poorly coded or maintained stored procedures that are making, as you said, applications take 10 seconds to return information when they should really be bringing them back immediately. But I found the technology you can work with makes a big difference as well. What the use case for the application is and how the information is stored. It's rare to get someone on the podcast that's got so much experience within the software space and kind of that data backend SQL Server space. For someone who is new to the industry, so whether that be a software development or data development, what are the major differences that you found between kind of the day-to-day work in the two different fields?
So it depends what sort of DBA you're going to be. And the term DBA does vary depending on sort of who you ask, what job offer you're going for. But I think it boils down to, sometimes people say, oh, I'm a DBA, but you're more of a development DBA or database developer. So you're probably leaning more towards the development side of things. But then if you're a production DBA or infrastructure DBA, I guess, you're more just trying to keep the lights on. So from the development world, I would say that the pressures are project-based and deadline-based. People want you to build things. They want you to build it quickly so they can implement, deploy it, implement the changes and see the return on investment for that. So they're under a lot of pressure. And I sympathize with developers these days because they seem to be under more pressure than I ever was just to get things delivered and done. So if you're a DBA that's heavily involved in development, I would say that's probably going to be a lot of your considerations is how do I just get this done quickly and with some quality. I'm more of a production DBA. I do work with the developers, mainly just advise on things. They show me what they've done and I give a quick look and then say, yeah, it's fine. That's all. Make sure you do this or that. But I keep the lights on. I make sure that the databases are backed up and secure, available, performing. And there's various different ways you can do that. You can have your own on-prem availability groups or cloud providers do that for you. But so my day-to-day tasks are making sure everything's working, it's monitored, there's no red flags flashing or the cloud status board for whatever provider you want to use. And then it's largely ticket based. So it's more like you get the IT service desk or support desk, whatever you call it. So I'll get tickets coming in, I'll respond to those. People might want data or some data might need fixing because of a bug somewhere. And then you get sort of the longer term projects where you might be looking to migrate to a new version of SQL Server. You might be looking to move from on-premise servers to cloud provider. Patching as well. If patching isn't done for you, really do need to keep on top of that. So I think, and it also depends if you've got an out of hours support contract. That can be a plus or a minus, depending on what, if you like working with databases. I get to do it out of hours as well. But
how often are you woken up in the middle of the night?
Yeah, exactly. I find the older I get, the more I don't want to be woken up.
Yeah.
So there is that consideration as well. Some places might do that with their developers if they need the skill sets in the middle of the night if there's an issue. But I think overall, production DBA is more likely to have that written into their contract.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I definitely, in my current workplace, support people on hand with those sorts of things in the contract.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have like a dedicated DBA. I suppose I'm responsible for that, but I don't have out of hours in my contract, so just get paid overtime if it ever comes up. But luckily, it doesn't come up very often, so that works well. Great. You mentioned patching and upgrading. One thing I've talked about multiple times on this podcast and other things that I've done recently is my love for managed instance on Azure. I've found using managed instance, I've got 90 to 95% of everything I would want from a SQL Server in a production state. And it removes all of the management and patching behind the scenes away from my role, which has been an absolute godsend over the last couple of years. Have you got any experience or used managed instance or any of those managed services?
Yes, I've used managed instances a lot and some sort of Azure SQL database databases floating around. Yeah, I agree. It does take a lot of the mundane kind of DBA 101 tasks away from your day-to-day tasks. I think, and then you've got time to look into performance tuning if that's what you need to do, or look into helping the developers more with sort of database design or kind of migrating. Well, if you're on a managed instance, you don't need to migrate to newer version. But if you've got a hybrid situation where you've got your managed instance with your kind of really important stuff in, but you've still got some on-prem old versions of SQL Server, you can finally get around to migrating those. And also archiving old data. That's one of the things that always seems to get forgotten. Years and years worth of data, and if you can actually get the business to agree a cutoff point, and you've got the time, then you can do those sort of tasks as well because it's important. It all helps with the size of your databases. That helps when you want to restore them in an emergency or for performance reasons.
Has a huge
Yeah,
impact on
managing
cost as well.
are great for sort of taking that from, I say mundane. It's got to be done, but it does get boring after a while.
Promote any DBAs or data developers out there just to kind of have a look at it if you haven't already and see whether it would be useful for your needs. Moving on then, I mentioned your experience at a big video game retailer. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast will be techies and probably like their games as well. You worked at Game a few years ago for a while. Was there any juicy stories that you've got? Was it a good place to work? I can imagine with it being a retailer, they had quite a high frequency of data loads and management of information. Like, were there any unique challenges with that? Just tell me more about it. I want to know more.
Yeah, I think I was there for 7 years. It was a good stint. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. When I saw the job role come up, I was quite excited about applying for that one because I was quite into gaming at the time. I still am. I don't play it as much. Responsibilities, family stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited to go there, and that was my first sort of proper production DBA role as well. I think I got lucky because the previous DBA had left, they'd replaced him, but then that person didn't stay very long. I'm not sure why. So they were actually without a DBA for a good 6 months, I think. So I got lucky. They were quite keen to get someone in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had sort of database developer experience. During that database developer role, I kind of did look after some of the production servers as well. So that helped. But their head office for Game is actually in my hometown as well.
Oh, well, that worked out.
And this was back when, like, pre-COVID, when everyone worked in the office, and it was great. You sort of go in and there's pictures on the walls of Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario and all kind of fun things like that. And they had a shop inside the store, inside the head office, sorry, that they called the mock shop, and they used it to sort of test how displays and marketing would look. But it had a working till system. Again, they used it to test the till systems. So you could go in there and buy things. You didn't have to go to town to the local game store. So that was good on my lunch break. You can't go in and browse the games. And there was a new release.
So dangerous.
It's good, yeah. Sometimes if you're really good friends with the people that work there, they'll bring your new release to you. Here, your new release has arrived. It lands on it. Yeah, it was really good fun. It was fast paced. So my first retail role, I think my first role like that, in a retail company.
Yeah.
And the year was very kind of up and down. The busy period, obviously, being around Black Friday, Christmas time, it was manic, and then it kind of calms down afterwards. But then you get these little peaks when there's a game being released that's popular. So the likes of Call of Duty, FIFA, that sort of thing. We would do these midnight releases where people would go to the stores and queue up at midnight.
I went to them a couple of times when I was in my teens, yeah.
So there were periods where it was just suddenly all hands on deck, very, very busy. And that's also a job where I did have a 24/7 support contract as well. So I very quickly learnt that it was within my best interest to make sure things were stable so that I didn't get called overnight and so that we didn't run into issues during these mad moments. I think they called it the curtains up moments, where all of a sudden everyone would rush in. And Black Fridays were tricky. And originally everything was done on the Black Friday, but then companies started spreading it out. You got the Cyber Monday, and I can't remember the other terms. So it wasn't so much of a big rush of people hitting your website.
Because the sales go over multiple days now, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. It just spreads it out more, which was definitely easier to manage. I'd imagine having the cloud providers now, the way you can sort of scale up and scale down, massively helps that, because you're not paying for servers that can handle the peak load for the entire year. You're kind of just only using it when you need the throughput.
Is that what was done then? Did you have to plan for the busiest periods, try and create systems that were up to scratch for those, and then basically have to keep them running or online for the majority of the year?
Yeah, we didn't really have, I don't think we have any cloud systems at the time. They weren't on site as a data center, but we didn't have the whole, scale up, scale down, or scale out. So a lot of it was, planning. All peaks come in. What do we sort of? We had load balance web servers, so they would sort of add a few more of those. But from the SQL Server side of things, it was largely, they would sort of be a bit busy, and then they'd be a lot busy, and then we didn't scale up and scale down in that respect.
Okay.
We I don't know what they do now. It was 2017, I think I left there. So they were certainly looking to move to better ways of doing it. But
okay, yeah, I suppose if you left back in 2017, that was kind of the early doors, really, of major adoption of cloud, wasn't it? I think, when I was in university in kind of that mid 2010s period, I did computer science and things, and there was no discussion about cloud computing or anything like that at the time, or experience with it. So, and when I started as a SQL developer, they weren't using cloud services; it was all on-prem. So yeah. You think back and you think, well, that's only 10 years. How far it's come in 10 years. Yeah. When you think about where you are now, you kind of, I suppose I do. I take it for granted a little bit. I work fully cloud now. And you have all of those nice to haves, I suppose you could put them as, that you've just mentioned. And you kind of forget the challenges that were there 10 years ago that people didn't have the solutions to, really. But I've never worked in retail. So, the experiences that I've had have been quite steady paced, and they've also been global businesses as well. So, working over multiple time zones and having kind of a steady stream of information throughout the working day. So it's interesting to hear the stories from your end. Talking about management of servers and services, and kind of the productionization of things that we've just gone through. The Brent Ozar Consultant Toolkit. I know a lot of listeners will probably have already heard of Brent Ozar. He puts quite a few funny shorts and things on LinkedIn that I like to see, answering questions from people. And I hope to meet him one day. I've seen him at a conference before, but never actually met him in person. Maybe the SQL Squared podcast gets big enough in the future where he becomes a guest. We'll see. But he's got a consultant toolkit that I've heard of before. I've had experience with, used someone's license to play around with it in the past. But you've said you use it quite regularly. It's one of the main tools that you use within your own consultancy. Can you just tell me and tell the audience kind of what this toolkit is, what it's used for, and the benefits it gives you?
Sure. So Brent has something called the First Responder Toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, there are various stored procedures. People also call them the Blitz scripts, because you've got Blitz cache, Blitz index. And the idea of it is these scripts just very quickly check a lot of things for you and put it all in one screen. So it's things that you can look up yourself, look at the data management views in SQL Server, or sort of system tables. You can go and find this stuff out yourself. Brent's written scripts that just do a lot of that for you and just very quickly kind of give you the information just to speed up your troubleshooting. And the consultant toolkit is built on top of the first responder kit. And the idea of doing that is somebody, as in a client, can download that executable file, and they just have to change the config to point it at whatever SQL instance they want to interrogate. Then they run it, and it runs. I don't know if they're exactly the same Blitz scripts or whether they're slightly different, but it pretty much runs a lot of these scripts.
Mm-hmm.
Gathers all this information, puts it in an Excel file for you. And then the client would send you that Excel file, and then you would go through it and provide whatever you promised to provide back, feedback, report, scripts to help them. So it's good because it can be done remotely. And it's also good because the client can look at the Excel sheet and they can decide if they want to send that information back to you or not. If they're worried about data protection or GDPR, they don't have to.
Yeah, that makes
It
sense.
it collects metrics really. So
Yeah.
yeah, but they get the choice, so they're not worrying about any of that.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially as a kind of a contractable DBA service, kind of data security and things can be a problem. If you've got a client that needs to give you access to their servers to do whatever you need to do. Obviously there's things like NDAs and stuff out there, but I suppose this toolkit acts as a really good way for you to get visibility into their services without actually having access to those services. Yeah. Oh, that's quite good. Yeah, I've used them in the past within the companies I've worked for. One of the main ones I've kind of taken, and I've got it saved down, and I take it wherever I go, is the Who scripts. So being able to run and figure out what's running on the server, what's blocking, for example. If people are running, if you have some data developers running scripts on the production service, which does happen, and it ends up blocking other kind of running services in the background, I can kind of very easily see what's happening and kind of kill it and make sure that everything continues to run through smoothly. So they're some of the processes that have been invaluable to me in the past. But yeah, no, that's good. I suppose we've gone through the overall concept of it. Is there any examples that you've got? Has there been any specific challenges that this toolkit has massively helped with?
I think just the speed at which it can get all that data for me is massively helpful in itself. Obviously, like you said, I don't need to be on site, don't need to travel. I've heard stories of people having to go to client offices and being shut in a locked room with the DBA, the on-site DBA, to work with it, and they watch everything they do, and it's So to be able to just receive this file back in itself is just really useful. And then I've actually automated a lot of this. I've got something where it put in the Excel file. There's the kind of basic stuff it will spit out pretty quickly, like are they backing up their server, etc. Their database. But then it's really useful because it will give you the top 10 offending queries by CPU or reads or duration. So you can very quickly just narrow down where you're focusing your investigation. And it also sort of gives you stats about indexes. And this is why it's important to run this on a server that's been up for a while, because if it's just been rebooted, you're not going to get a lot of detail on the indexes, unless that company has saved that outside. But this sort of toolkit obviously won't know about that. So if it's got a lot of useful information in from historical index usage, you can see which ones aren't being used, which ones are duplicates, potentially required. SQL Server gives you suggestions of what indexes are required, but they're not always suggestions you should blindly follow. So I'd say definitely the index side of it has been really useful, because unless they've got someone on site that knows about indexes, they might just blindly say, oh, yeah, saying I need this index, I'll create this one, I'll create that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get too many indexes on a table, which can cause blocking or slow down your inserts, updates, and deletes. Or duplicate indexes take up space, they're not required. And unused indexes, obviously, no point having those. You've got to be careful, though, because if there's one process that runs yearly that uses that index, you're not going to see it if you reboot multiple times during the year before that. You've got to be careful not to say, oh yeah, just delete all of these. Well, you could delete these if you're definitely sure you don't need them. The index side of it comes up a lot, I think. That's a quick win. There's no coding around the applications that you need.
Mm-hmm.
You just say, well, here are the scripts to create the index and roll it back in case you need to put the index back. Obviously, I would suggest people test this in a non-prime environment first. And the other thing is, usually the top 10 offending queries, there's usually a couple in there where you think, oh, okay, that's going to be causing them some pain for CPU reasons. And there's one of them that had implicit conversions in there. We realized it was, this is where, when it's doing the where clause, it was looking for then varchar. But the table was a varchar and it had to convert it up to do the comparison. It was just hurting the CPU quite a bit. So you can very quickly narrow down the area you need to look into, so you don't spend days sort of digging around. In fact, there was an index. One good example was an index that I recommended adding purely because they had a query that was doing a sort, and it was over a large table. And there's always the argument that is why are you even doing this query? Go and fix it in your application. But that's kind of outside of what I recommend. But this query was running, it was getting back a large amount of data, and it was all sorting it every single time. So I put an index on there. The index was pre-sorted, which meant the query didn't need to sort the results and use that index. So CPU dropped a good chunk. So I'd say, yeah, the query plans and the indexes are the ones that come up the most.
Yeah, I mean, the indexes can make such a huge difference to the performance of your queries. I advise anyone, if you're building a new store procedure or a script or something that wants to return or process data within SQL, you've got to add indexes. Some people avoid them, and they, more junior people will avoid them because they're difficult to understand at the start. And it's not like you're coding in Python or C# or whatever, where you just write your code and it's got a more predictable processing time. There's that extra dimension within SQL and or even within other database services as well that you need to cater for. So yeah, it's really, really important.
It's a different mindset, I think, with SQL Server.
And one for the audience out there, if you want to learn more about these tools or topics we've discussed, please make sure to check the website. There's some blogs and links on there to tools like the Brent Ozar Consultancy Kit. And I think you can visit brentozar.com. brentozar.com to find out more about that. All right, then, moving into a bit of a fun section. We have talked about before, about your coding journey. And you've mentioned to me that, you've got experience with certain coding languages that, well, a couple of them I'd never even heard of, to be honest. So I want to know more about those. So like when you first got into computing, when you first got into development, like what were some of the first programming languages you learned, and like what were you even using them for?
The first one I can remember was when I was younger, we had a ZX Spectrum, and this was it was a keyboard, if you like, that you plugged into the screen, and you had a cassette player that you plugged into it, and you would load things by putting cassettes in. So it's very old, kind of 80s tech. And I can't remember the name of the magazine, but you could buy these magazines that would have things about fun games you could buy. And in the back, there was a section where you could write your own code. And again, I have no idea what the coding language was. And so you'd sit there reading the magazine, typing in all this code, and it would make the screen beep to a tune or do some fun little things. It was really good fun, and that's my first memory of getting stuck into coding. It was tricky because if you got one character wrong, it wouldn't compile properly, and you had to go and read through what I got wrong. And my mother was always into kind of word processing and things. She taught that when I was younger. So we had a PC at the time, and then I got into, I think was it BASIC or QBasic, the coding language?
I've heard of VBasic.
Yeah. So yeah, I got into coding that way, really. The computer was there. I had time. I think I just like the digging around and sort of problem solving, discovering what it can do.
I think it's a very similar story to people getting into coding, isn't it? It's that kind of just messing around, see what you can change, problem solving aspect. I got into coding with Minecraft.
Right.
I used to play Minecraft a lot when I was in my early teens, and I decided one day I wanted to make a Minecraft mod. So I started digging into the code of the Java code of Minecraft, and looked at a lot of tutorials and things to try and create some mods, like adding new blocks, weapons, adding new crafting recipes, things like that. It wasn't anything majorly complex because I was only young at the time. But that, having that, linking to video games. I love video games when I was younger. Which is why I was so interested in your game stories, because I was one of those people lining up outside the local game store at midnight to pick up the new Call of Duty. But that was kind of my break into it as well. I didn't have What about at school when you were younger? Were there any computing courses? Because I didn't do any myself either. I had to kind of get into it in my own time.
In my junior school, we had a BBC Micro, which you could use very infrequently. I just remember it being in a corridor somewhere. But then,
Micro.
yeah, a long time ago, I remember the name, but that's about it. I don't remember what we did on it. There was some, the adventure games where you typed some text like "Go North" and "Pick up sword," and there's that sort of thing. Text adventures.
All right, yeah.
Then when I moved to senior school, we had Amigas, which we learned sort of word processing and spreadsheet things on. This was before schools had more kind of PCs running Windows, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It wasn't until I got to college that we really got into that. I specifically did a computing course at college, and that's where the sort of momentum went on.
Yeah.
Rooms full of PCs everywhere. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it took a lot of not pushing, but yeah, when I was looking at university courses, or I was in college, I never really considered computer science. I wanted to either do like maths or physics or something, more classic. And somebody put me onto computer science, and I had to look into it, and kind of matched with my interest in coding at the time, and never looked back. So I'd recommend anyone out there to get into computing, get into programming. I mean, the computer science courses and things, at university, they are really useful, definitely, for teaching you all of the underlying processes and functions and time complexity management and how to create efficient algorithms and stuff like that you wouldn't necessarily get from learning it yourself. But a lot of people get into programming these days, especially web development, just by doing a 4 to 6 week course. But I'd definitely recommend the more in-depth courses for people, because I think that gave me a lot of baseline knowledge to create better apps, better processes. You mentioned typing in one character at a time, get one character wrong, and the whole thing doesn't compile. Did you find that an enjoyable thing to do or a frustrating thing to do? Because I know the experience for developers these days is a lot different, even to the point where we've now got AI writing stuff. So
I think I was young enough to not get too frustrated. I had all the time in the world on my hand, and my dad would come along. We'd both try and work out which line was wrong, or it was a little bit frustrating, but it's still fun at the time.
Yeah. I mean, even when you started, I suppose, as a software developer, even like in IntelliSense wouldn't have been as comprehensive as it is now. I think when did you start? The early 2000s. Even back then, do you prefer the more modern day development process or the older stuff that you were more used to at the time?
Definitely more modern, for sure. Yeah, nobody wants to spend time looking through lines of code to work out where you've got some.
Yeah.
So, for me, the fun is building something and seeing the end result. So anything that can help me do that, but not take away the creative side of it, I'm all up for. IntelliSense.
Mm-hmm.
In things like Visual Studio, you can see what your variables values are, like the they call window, I think they call it. You get stack traces. All of that kind of stuff is super useful. And debugging when that became
step through it line by line. Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of the reward you get from programming is that kind of final, what's the output? That feeling of struggling on something for hours on end, and then finally it works. And you're like, oh, thank the Lord. That's kind of, I suppose, a feeling that's going to be missed with a lot of the new AI stuff around the corner.
Yeah, there's potential.
Maybe you'll get, how you get people that are really into vintage cameras. I guarantee in 10 years' time you'll have vintage coders.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think there's still some COBOL coders around.
Well, yeah, I think Not by choice. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think.
yeah. I haven't done it myself, but I'm here or out there.
No, I one of the worst. I hated when I was in university. I had to do an assembly course. Oh my god, I hated that. I hated that with a passion. Never ever want to touch assembly code ever again. It was just horrible. I hated it. I hated every moment of it.
I tried to get into that. I remember buying the book, which was kind of that thick. I was very excited about it.
Yeah, just to make one function.
Yeah, it didn't last very long because I thought if I learned assembly language, then I can do anything because that's the low down.
Yeah. No, I know. It's something else. I don't think anyone out there will miss not working with it. Hey, yeah. I mean, talking about like upcoming technologies and processes, conferences. I know you went to Data Scotland. Was it last week?
A couple of weeks back, I think.
A couple of weeks ago. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. How was it? I've never been.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, I went last year. Was my first year there, and I booked to go as an attendee. And then I was at another event, and the person giving me my attendee badge had a Scottish accent. Someone called Nikki Kelly. I said, "Oh, where are you from?" In Scotland. She said, "Glasgow." I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going there soon to a conference, Data Scotland." She goes, "Yeah, I run it." I said, "Well." And so yeah, it's Nikki and Craig Porteous and Louise Patterson, I think. They kind of organise it, and I had already volunteered at SQL Bits at the time, so I ended up volunteering at Data Scotland. And I'm really glad I did because it was brilliant. I would say it's a smaller conference than SQL Bits, but the quality was really good. Like the sessions were brilliant. It had that really nice kind of data community vibe to it. It was the same venue this year. It was I'm going to say Strathclyde Technology Campus for the university. I think that's what it was called. Really good venue, and volunteering is great because you just get to speak to so many people. It was busy, so busy I actually missed my flight home this time. I didn't leave enough time to get to the flight. It was okay. I got a later flight and meant I could just chill out and have dinner before the ride home. But yeah, it was brilliant. Craig and Nikki and Louise are just really good organisers. They put so much effort into it, and everyone just seems happy. I even recognised a few of the attendees this year that were from last year because I was on the reception desk giving out the lanyards with the cars. Oh, I recognise you. You came last year. And yeah, everyone just seems happy, and it's free as well.
Well,
always said that he doesn't ever want to charge for this one, which makes it tricky to put on. And they're actually having a break next year because of that, and then the year after is their 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary, because I've never heard of it. I only saw it through your LinkedIn posts. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that was such a big conference that went on in the UK. But yeah, I'll have to go one year. One of the volunteering and stuff is something that I want to get into in 2026. SQL Bits have been in touch with me about the podcast this year, and they've asked to do an episode with me to talk about the conference and try and get the word out there a little bit. So I'll see what I can do with kind of the SQL Bits conference for 2026. I haven't got any announcements to make or anything yet, but we'll see how all that goes. Looking forward to it. Talking about SQL Bits then, because I know, SQL Bits is one of the most well-known ones in the UK, and it's actually well-known around the world. People from all over come in to speak at SQL Bits and also to attend the conference. I think 2026 is back in Newport.
Yes.
Which is my Newport's not my hometown, but I'm from South Wales. I'm from the valleys, so it'll also be a good excuse to visit family again.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
But yeah, did you go to the one in, was it in 2023 or 2024 that it was in Newport?
4 was Newport, yeah.
24.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever went to SQL Bits.
Really?
I regret never going before. I just never did it. I always say to people, I fall up and quite late to the whole data community and conference thing. But yeah, I'm kicking myself because I've missed out on.
Yeah, SQL Bits has been great. I went when they stopped over. My first one that I went to was 2018, and that was in Manchester because I work in Manchester. And then 2019, but then COVID hit. So I think they were missing a couple, and I think I missed 2024 Newport. And unfortunately, I missed this year because I had no idea it was going to be in the summer, because it's normally in springtime. And I was at the Bordeaux Wine Festival on the same day, so I was just getting smashed in Bordeaux rather than attending SQL Bits. But yeah, I was gutted I couldn't go, because I do love the conferences.
Actually, I think 23 was Newport. 24 was Farnborough Airport. Yeah, and we're in 25 now.
Yeah, it was. And I did go to the Farnborough Airport one, so I didn't miss 2024. I've got it mixed up then. So I went to the Newport and Farnborough ones, but I didn't manage to go to this year's one. You get so much out of these conferences, so much. Walk away with much more knowledge than what you entered with, and even the SQL Bits free days, really good to go to. And I do need to go to more free conferences like Data Scotland, like you mentioned. Have there been any kind of like key takeaways that you took away from Data Scotland? Did you manage to go to any of the talks? I know you were volunteering, but I imagine you still managed to attend a few things.
Yes, most of the volunteers have to do what's called moderating. So you're in the room for a talk, make sure the speaker's got everything.
Hold up the cards, say how much time they got left.
Yeah, time cards, like 5 minutes over. No, most of them are pretty good about their timings. And you, beforehand, you give a list of the talks you would like to go to. There's no guarantee to go to those ones. Usually you get to see most of them. So yeah, I was in some really, really good talks. And actually the ones that I had put on my list that I went to, I found really good anyway. I thought, I wouldn't have gone to this talk originally, but it was really, really good. There's a bit of a joke where I work about Power BI. I said, I'll give Simon Power BI work to do. I'm like, no, I don't want to do Power BI. But I sat through a couple of Power BI talks, and they're really interesting, actually. And I think that's down to the quality of the speakers. You can tell they're passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
Sessions they give were really, really good. And they also do a lot of non-technical talks as well about maybe like inclusion or mental health, or just balancing work life with home life. And they're really interesting. I always find those quite good. I think that's becoming more prevalent in a lot of the conferences now, that they're getting a lot more sort of soft skill courses in. But just to go and be in the atmosphere and see everyone else excited about it and talk to them about your job or the speakers they've seen, it's just that's just brilliant as well. If you can get there, if you can pay the travel and accommodation if you need to, especially because Data Scotland was free. Yeah, it's well worth doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I know a few people going to the PASS Summit in Seattle this year. Unfortunately, I can't afford to go to that.
Yeah,
maybe 1 year. It's quite expensive. But yeah, I mean, again, a message to the audience out there. I'd love to hear about any of your favorite conferences that you've been to, any learns that you have, or any questions you have for me or for any of the future guests. I'm sure if anyone does have any questions, Simon, I can pass them over on LinkedIn and get the answers out to people.
Sure.
But yeah, please send your stories and or questions to our mailbag at sqlsquared.co.uk. That's mailbag at sqlsquared.co.uk. I think that's everything we had lined up to talk about. Simon, is there any kind of last things you want to touch on, or is that all good?
No, all good. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you.
Good. No, and it's been great having you on. As I always take a lot from these chats, probably as much as people listening do, and I've really enjoyed doing the podcasts and the episodes and things with people, and kind of making new acquaintances and making new friends. Maybe we'll meet up in person at SQL Bits next year.
Certainly.
Simon, it's been a brilliant chat, and thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your journey and insights with us. Honestly, it's been genuinely fascinating. And to all our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in and supporting us. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube so you don't miss our next episode. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn to stay up to date with everything we're doing and any upcoming episodes and guests that we'll have on the show. And of course, check out sqlsquared.co.uk for more content. That's all for us today, folks. And until next time, keep coding, keep querying, and keep innovating. Thanks, Simon. See you next time.